All right, let's dive into a book that's sold millions of copies all over the world, The One Thing by Gary Keller. Now, its whole promise is that there's a surprisingly simple truth behind getting extraordinary results. So if you're ready to cut through all the noise and find what really matters, let's get right into it. So let me ask you, does this sound familiar? Your to-do list is just a mile long, you're busy all the time, you're juggling a million tasks, answering emails, putting out fires, but then you get to the end of the day and you have this nagging feeling that you haven't made any real progress on your most important goals. You know, you're working harder than ever, but somehow you feel like you're falling farther and farther behind. But what if that feeling isn't your fault? What if you're not the problem? The book argues it's got nothing to do with a lack of effort or discipline. The real issue is a flawed approach. It's about where you're putting all that energy. See, the problem isn't how hard you work, it's how you focus that work. So let's start by digging into that feeling, that sense of being completely maxed out. We'll call this section the overwhelm epidemic. It sounds so obvious, right? But really think about it for a second. You have a limited amount of time and energy every single day. So when you try to do everything, you end up giving just a tiny little piece of yourself to each task. Your effort gets watered down, your impact is minimal, and honestly, the results are just disappointing. It's kind of like trying to fill a dozen cups with a single pitcher of water. Nothing really gets filled up. So why do we keep doing this to ourselves? Why do we keep spreading ourselves so thin? Well, the book argues it's because we've been fed a bunch of bad information. So in this next section, we're going to expose the 6 big lies that are getting in the way of real success. Okay, so here they are. These are the 6 core beliefs that send us way off track. First, the lie that everything matters equally. You know, the one that turns our to-do list into a trap. Then there's the myth of multitasking, which, let's be honest, is really just a great way to mess up several things at once. There's the idea you need this superhuman disciplined life, when what you really need is just enough discipline to build the right habits. The belief that willpower is always available, when it's actually like a battery that runs out. The quest for a perfectly balanced life, which usually just leads to being mediocre at everything. And finally, the fear that big is bad, which stops us from even trying to achieve something amazing. And you know, of all those lies, this is the big one. This is the most dangerous one. It's the idea that a super long to-do list is a sign of importance, and every single unchecked box has the same weight. But when you believe everything is a priority, then absolutely nothing is a priority. This is the lie that leads to overwhelm more than any other. This quote from Goethe just hits the nail on the head. Real success isn't about managing some endless list. It's about protecting the few things that really matter from the mountain of things that don't. Prioritization is, well, it's everything. Okay, so if we've been operating on a bunch of lies, then what's the truth? This brings us to the core secret of the entire book. The book shares this fantastic story from the movie City Slickers. You've got this wise old cowboy, Curly, who holds up one finger and tells Billy Crystal the secret to life is one thing. And when he's asked what that one thing is, he just says, that's what you've got to figure out. It's such a simple but powerful idea. A singular focus is the key to everything. And this is how you actually apply that secret. It's a strategy called going small. And I know, it feels completely backward in a world that's always screaming, do more. But going small just means you consciously ignore that endless list of things you could do, so you can pour all your energy into the one thing you should do. This is the big takeaway. Extraordinary results are directly tied to how narrow you can make your focus. When you go as small as possible, you end up staring at just one thing. And that's exactly the point. This isn't about doing less, it's about doing more of what truly matters. But how does that even work? How does focusing on one small thing create these massive results? Well, let's explore probably the most powerful metaphor in the entire book to understand this. We've all seen dominoes fall, right? You just tip one over, and it creates this awesome chain reaction. Well, the book explains that success works the exact same way. It's not about doing everything all at once. It's built sequentially, one piece at a time. You do the right thing, and that single action sets the next right thing in motion. But here's where the physics gets absolutely mind-blowing. A single domino can knock over another domino that's 50% bigger. This creates something called a geometric progression, which means the results aren't just adding up, they're multiplying, they're exponential. So just picture this. You start with your very first domino, your first focused action. It's small, it's manageable, just a couple of inches tall. Super easy to tip over. But as that chain reaction keeps going, the growth becomes just staggering. By the 18th domino in the line, you're knocking over something as tall as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I mean, think about that. You go from a tiny first step to something truly monumental. And it just keeps going. The 23rd domino, it'd be taller than the Eiffel Tower. The 31st would soar over Mount Everest. And now get this, by the 57th domino, you would have a domino tall enough to literally bridge the distance from the Earth to the moon. All of that from one tiny push. And that's the whole lesson right there. Success isn't some mad scramble. It's a sequence. You don't need to do everything. You just have to find the right first thing to do, and then build on that momentum, one domino at a time. Okay, so this brings us to the final and honestly, the most important part. How do you apply this to your own life? It all starts by finding your first domino. This leads us to what the book calls the focusing question. And you have to ask yourself this: what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? The answer to that question, that is your lead domino. The entire process hinges on this. You line up your priorities, you identify that first domino, and then you pour all of your energy into just knocking that one over. And once it falls, it'll start a chain reaction that begins to topple all the others. And that is the question I really want to leave you with. In your career, in your health, in your relationships, what is your lead domino? What is the one thing you can do right now, such that by doing it, everything else becomes easier or even unnecessary? Find that, and you've found the simple truths to extraordinary results.